For this week's episode of the CEO's Chair, we have somebody who's a dear friend with a PhD in accounting and finance from the University of Arizona. He runs his private investment fund, and he's extremely passionate about what he does. Dr. Rohit Singh, welcome to the CEO's Chair.
Thank you, Siddharth.
Pleasure. So, Doctor, let's start with what makes you tick. What gets you out of bed in the morning? What makes you excited to do what you do?
Well, firstly, please just call me Rohit. When you say doctor, I start looking for my dad. No, that's well, it's just really the investment fund is how I execute what I do, but the real thing behind it is the research. It's the constant search for knowledge, for new ideas of how things work. There's a thrill that comes with discovery, even in the most boring fields such as accounting, finance, but you can learn something new about how people think, how people act under pressure.
And you've got some extremely interesting ideas on the research that you do, because you take in elements of psychology, neurology. Can you talk to us a little bit more about that?
Sure. Well, you see, finance theory is based or began with the idea that all individuals are rational and will act in their best interests. Now, that's a great place to start, but when it comes down to everyday life, people aren't rational. We both know that. Everyone knows that. But how do you really model or predict what an irrational action is? It's irrational, so how can you predict it? So the goal is to study the psychology, the motivations of individuals and groups, how they act under pressure.
Can you give us an example of, let's say, rational versus irrational behavior and how that would affect an investment strategy for a lot of us non-finance people that are out there?
Well, I mean, the rational, irrational part is, you don't have to be a finance expert to do it, but you know, one common example is that, which a lot of people find it difficult, is that if they're holding an investment which suddenly turns to the negative, a lot of people, instead of trying to set a rule on when they should get out, take your losses at a certain point, move out, they hold on to it with the hope that it's going to turn around. And as a result, their losses get deeper and deeper. Now that's an example of irrational behavior, but because a rational way would have been to set a rule, cut your losses at a certain point, and pursue another option. Sure. However, it's very difficult for individuals or anyone to accept that loss. It's like admitting to failure. And they will continue with those losses until it practically wipes them out. The interesting thing about most of these books on personal performance and what drives people, what leads to success, is actually not what we believe, or, well, there's enough evidence to suggest that it's not really our perceptions of one person being more intelligent than another. That is a subjective concept. I mean, how do you define someone as intelligent? It's such a vague concept. But what you can do is define very clearly when someone's hardworking. And what a lot of studies suggest is it doesn't matter how smart you may be up here, how intelligent you may be perceived at, but what makes a difference is how hard you work and whether you work smart. Working smart means not doing things that are routine, because that doesn't really tax the brain.
Correct.
Working smart means taking to yourself to a point where you're uncomfortable, where you literally fail, so to speak, so that once you reach that limit, you have to learn a new skill.
So when you're, let's say, collaborating with somebody or you're looking to hire a new employee, you would give much more credit to somebody who's hardworking as opposed to somebody who's talented or perceived to be more intelligent.
Absolutely, because I always believe that one person's attitude is much more important. If you, again, if someone is intelligent in one person's eyes, he may not be in another's. If he's intelligent in one field, he may not be in another. But if he lacks the skill in one area and he's willing to work for it, he's willing to work hard, he can develop that skill. It's the attitude, it's the patience, it's the discipline, the readiness to put in the effort, the readiness to keep failing, if as the word calls it, but perhaps the people who we call the most successful are the ones who don't really like the word failure. They call it steps to success.
Correct.
Someone who's willing to take those steps to success, that's the kind of person I want to work with.
And, changing gears a little bit, what do you do when everything doesn't work out according to plan? I mean, I'm sure, like everyone else who's seen a little bit of life, you've faced adversity, you've faced setbacks, personally and professionally. Sure. What have you done to, put things in perspective for yourself?
Well, adversity is a part of life, I guess, and it's not something we can ever run away from. But what we can do is be prepared. Mm-hmm. We can prepare as much as possible. Now, that may not cover every scenario, but if we're talking about opportunities for business, then when the opportunity arises is not in our control, but preparing for it is. And so when that opportunity presents itself, we can and we will know how to act.
Thank you. I think it's been a really enlightening talk, and I think some of the takeaways from Rohit Singh's mantra to success would be prepared, put things in perspective, and don't hesitate to work hard. So Rohit, thank you so much for making the time, and we appreciate you coming on the CEO's chair. Thank you.